Welcome. Hari Om. Gajananam Bhuta Ganadi Sevitam Kapitta Jambu Palasara Bhakshitam Umasutam Shoka Vinasha Karanam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste and a hearty welcome to one and all for today's 17th session of our series Discovery of Inner Strength and Happiness, in short, DISHA. A program to lead us into an inward journey to discover our inner strength and happiness through Bhagavad Gita. Today, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir shall not only give prelude to the topic of the day, but he shall be as the main speaker, help us understand the wisdom of seeing inaction in action or action in action. From Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Gnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, verses 16 to 24. He shall also explain the significance of Shāstra Pramānam or scripture, the sixth Pramānam from Tattvabodha. Today's teaching quiz, which has been put together by Dr. Satyanarayana and Dr. Jagdish, will be presented by Dr. Satyanarayana. It is said that chanting or listening to the powerful mantra Manojavam Maruta Tulya Vegam, dedicated to Lord Hanuman in the early morning, gives us positive energy and relief from troubles. Srimati Shamla Shetty shall commence today's session by chanting and explaining this mantra. Shamla Madam, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham Vatatmajam Vanarayutha Mukhyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Sharanam Prapadye. There are so many stotras on Hanuman. This is one among them. Next slide, please. Hanuman is one character in the Ramayana whose actions are beyond criticism. We do not find a single incident wherein he has committed any mistake. He is the very embodiment of devotion, wisdom, and service, something we can all aspire to. As long as Hanuman served Sugriva, his powers remained dormant. And when he met Lord Rama, he recognized his master and all his powers were brought out. He is Atulita Baladhamam, that abode of incomparable strength. Hanuman is the delight for the children, a motivator for the youth, a shining idol for the devotee, and for the wise, the most fascinating ideal. This is Hanuman. Let us come to today's stotra. This is a powerful stotra dedicated to Lord Hanuman. Lord Hanuman, whose speed, valor, and loyalty to Sri Rama are legendary. By chanting this stotra, one gets relieved from troubles and gets positive energy. One should listen to this stotra every morning or whenever in trouble. I take refuge in Sri Hanuman. Let me pray and salute the one who is Manojavam, who is as swift as the mind. Maruta Tulya Vegam, the one who is more powerful than the wind. Jitendriyam, the one who has conquered his senses. Buddhimatam Varishtham, best amongst the wise. Vatatmajam, the son of the wind god. Vanarayutha Mukhyam, chief among the Vanaras. Shri Ramadutam, to that messenger of Shri Rama, Sharanam Prapadye, I take refuge. Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham Vatatmajam Vanarayutha Mukhyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Sharanam Prapadye. Every day I pray Hanuman to bless me his Nirantara Bhakti, With this, I end my presentation. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Shamila, for introducing this beautiful Hanuman mantra. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. It is my privilege to both introduce today's topic as well as to cover verses 16 to 24, concluding in that famous mantra, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi. These are some of the most important verses of the entire Bhagavad Gita, and they're also a little cryptic verses to understand. Swami Paramarthananda ji said that they are the essence of all the Vedas or the Vedanta, and therefore the introduction is going to be elaborate once we understand what is this Jnana Karma Sannyasa. In fact, this is very important to understand. This is the title of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Let us focus on understanding. I would like you to take the word Karma Sannyasa as one word. And then we will look into the meaning of this chapter. What is this Jnana Karma Sannyasa? The word sannyasa means renunciation. Karma sannyasa means renunciation of all action. In the earlier chapter, that is in the 3rd chapter, Krishna had made a very relevant verse, which we all relate in our life, that it is impossible to remain even for a second while awake without doing some karma or the other. Karma can be in the thought, it can be through speech, or it could be through our action. We are always into doing some karma or the other. So what is the meaning of karma sannyasa? The word jnana comes here. Jnana means spiritual understanding that I am not this body. This body mind is only an instrument of transaction. I have had many bodies in the past, and I may have many bodies in the future also. Bodies come and go. I am the Atma Tattva, which is enabling this body to act. So the more you understand and anchor in your higher self that I am the Atma, and as Atma, I am infinite, I am all pervading. Anything infinite has no limits. Once it has no limits, it is so big it cannot move. If it cannot move, it is akarta. It cannot do anything at all. So Jnana Karma Sannyasa is renunciation of action through knowledge. I give less and less importance to the body-mind, which is the ahankara or ego. The body-mind will continue to do. The example nicely understand is, supposing you wake up in your dream and you see your dream body continuing to do so many actions, but now you know it is a dream. Therefore, all the dream events are not of any consequence. Just like you watch a movie, you watch your life go on. That is how a jnani lives his life. He allows his body, based on its ashrama or based on its role in life, to do whatever it can. So your activities will continue. So always anchor on your higher self. Aham Brahmasmi. All our sadhanas is to remember this and allow the body mind to do whatever its role to be. The next important thing is to understand what is this karma sannyasa. Sannyasa or karma sannyasa is of two types. One is called the vividisha sannyasa. That means when you look like the illustration you see, a person is vividly, very clearly a sannyasi because he has left society. He has become a monk. He has given up all religious duties. He has given all social duties. He does not even cook for himself. That is why he's called a niragni. This is a physical renunciation. This is an external renunciation. This is the Chaturtha Ashrama or the 4th Ashrama recommended in our Shastras. We are talking about another kind of sannyasa, which is called a Vidvat sannyasa. A Vidvat Sannyasa is far more difficult. It is based on Vedanta Vichara. Through Vedanta Vichara, through Guru Shastra, through Shravanam, Mananam, Nidityasanam, I now anchor in the truth that Aham Brahmasmi, I am that. Just like King Janaka would continue to do his function as an emperor and lead a very busy life, I understand who I am and play whatever role I have to do. So this is purely internal, based on Atma Vidya. Personally, I have nothing to accomplish. There is nothing to do. There is no personal agenda. But as a king, as a doctor, as a husband, as a father, there is a certain role to play. And because these roles are important, I play all my roles sincerely, just like an actor on the stage plays as per the director's instruction. An actor cannot go beyond the script, but what he can do is get totally involved in the role, play that role 100%, and get appreciation for whatever he does. When I first studied the Upadesha Sara, I was shocked by the words of Bhagavan Ramana, who spoke on Karma Kim Param. Don't give too much importance to karma. Karma Tad Jadam. For the first time, I heard somebody saying karma can be a waste of time. And in the second verse, he hammers this very clearly. Kriti Mahodado. Kriti means karma is like an ocean, never ending. Patana Karanam. It can be the cause of one's downfall. And it will be the cause of one's downfall because you get more and more involved in karma, less and less time for spiritual inquiry. Palama Sashvatam, whatever you get successes in this world is temporary. Gati Nirodhakam, it blocks your spiritual progress. Then what to do? He gives it the answer very beautifully in the third verse. Convert your karma into a yoga. Make it a sadhana. How do we do it? Ishwararpanam. Whatever action that I have to do from morning to evening, every action has to be done as a yajna, as an offering to God, as an expression of my gratefulness that I have good health, I can serve. Na ichchaya kritam. Don't hanker on the outcome. Just do whatever you have to do. And if you are Ishwararpanam and Ishwara Prasada Bhava, over a period of time, karma will treat the mind of its mala, Kama, Krodha, etc. And that is called Chitta Shodhakam. And then it gives you Mukti Sadhakam. It gives you Jnana Yogyata. Very beautiful verse to remember and to practice. In this chapter, Shri Krishna is coming to what is called Yogaha Karmasu Kausalam, what is called skill in action. Let us go beyond just Ishwararpana Bhava, Ishwara Prasada Bhava. You will understand the real skill in action is doing your action in such a way that you are not bound by your actions. Normally, any action that I do, even this action of explaining these verses, can result in a punya, or if my motive is not good, it can result in a papa. Now, how do we get into action without involving any punya or papa? Because even punya involves punarapi jananam, and punarapi jananam involves punarapi maranam. Can we get out of the cycle? So what do we do? Buddhi yukto jahatiha. Jahatiha means giving up. Giving up both punya and papa. Ube sukrute dushkrute. How do you do it? Buddhi yuktaha. Through spiritual knowledge. What is that spiritual knowledge? Aham brahmasmi. I am that infinite. I cannot do anything. Then what do? I allow things to do through my body and mind. There is no sense of ownership in all my actions. I do whatever has to be done without a feeling of I am doing. There is no ego in my actions. Tasmad yogaya yujyasya. This is what Shri Krishna calls it, yogaha karmasu kausalam. And if you're able to work in that way, this is the real skill in action where you're not incurring any punya or any papa. Real skill in action is not any surgical skill or any other form of skill. This is it. What is it? One of the beautiful Vedic laws is do less, accomplish more. And you can study it from nature. Nature functions effortlessly. Grass grows, fish swim, birds fly. Do you see any effort? Flowers bloom, the earth spins. The more we are in harmony with nature, that means the more we are anchored into our higher self. There is no ego. It is the ego that is trying to prove something to somebody. Whenever the ego tries to prove something to somebody, then there is effort. So watch yourself. Am I struggling to explain this to somebody? Am I doing it for acceptance or appreciation? Is there ego functioning through me? Sometimes there is a fear that I will be a nobody, or the greed to be somebody. I'm trying to get acceptance. Swamiji again and again says there is no need to prove anything to anybody. Come from a state of defenselessness. And that's when you bring in the law of least effort. This is Vidyaranya Swami, who was the Prime Minister of the Vijayanagar Empire and later became the Jagat Guru of the Sringeri Sharada Peetham. He has written, among other great works, it is the Panchadashi. The Panchadashi, 7th chapter, is also called Tripti Deepa Prakarana, where he has elaborated or given 298 verses as a commentary on this one verse of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which goes like this. Atmanam ched vijaniyat ayam asmiti purushaha kimichan tasya kamaya shariram anusvam varet. That means, when a person now, like all of us, now we know who we are. We now know that we are the Atma. Once I know I am the Atma, and we have worked on eliminating the ego. And once there is no desirer, it is the ego who desires. And if there is no desirer in me, there is no desired object, there is no desire, then what is the struggle to do? What is there to accomplish? And he very nicely brings about a spiritual evolution in 298 verses. Hopefully we will study that someday. But the whole message is, the moment you know your higher self, you will suddenly realize that there is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. You are already that which you can possibly be. Very nicely given by Bhagwan Shri Krishna as a reply to Arjuna, when Arjuna asks, how does an enlightened person walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? And Shri Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atmanevatmana tushtaha stita prajnotaju uchchate. Who is a stita prajna? One who has understood whose true nature. One who is anchored in himself. Atman evatmana tushtaha. Tushtaha means sampurna, a tripti. A person is full of his understanding. I am Atma. Then what happens? Prajahati yadakam. All the desires that arise in his mind disappear. This is the Charama Shloka. The Charama Shloka needs to be studied in great detail. Adi Shankara has given a very brilliant commentary. And of course, our teacher, Swami Paramatmananda, has spoken for more than 2 to 3 hours on this very mantra alone. Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma suchaha. The opening word, I have marked it in red, is the phrase, that first half of the first verse, first quarter, which we need to really understand. Sarva dharman parityagya. Parityagya means to give up. Give up all dharma. The Bhagavad Gita begins with dharma kshetre kurush kshetre. How can you give up all dharma? Adi Shankara now goes into a detailed analysis of the word dharma. Whenever I do any karma based upon dharma, I get punya or papa. And therefore, he nicely deduces that the word dharma is actually karma. Give up all karma. Again, we analyzed earlier that it's impossible to give up all karma. Then what do? Unless you anchor on your higher self and you realize you are akarta abhokta. And that is explained in the next line. Mam ekam sharanam braja. The focus is ekam. become the one. The one, the non-dual one is Atma. Once you are Jnana Nishta as Atma, then what? Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo. All our sins get destroyed. All the Sanchita karma gets destroyed. There is no more Agami karma. Once a person has Jnana Nishta, moksha automatically happens to such a person. And therefore, Shri Krishna says, don't be sorrowful. This is the beautiful Charama Shloka. I want to touch on this very important Buddhist sutra, and this can be very difficult to understand. It takes a long time for me to explain also, but I will still attempt. Buddha says, my doctrine or my Dhamma is to think the thought that is unthinkable, to practice the deed that is not doing, to speak the speech that is inexpressible, and to be trained in a discipline which is beyond discipline. Those who understand this are near, those who are confused are far. Now, we all want to understand this. We want to be close to a Buddha. Let us see what Buddha is trying to explain to us. This verse has been explained by Osho in more than 1 hour by trying to help us to understand what Buddha is trying to say. My doctrine is to think the thought that is unthinkable. What is that thought which is unthinkable? And the whole of Buddhist and Zen sadhanas is to attain to that state where there are no thoughts. So Buddha wants us to come to that state where there is no thoughts. My doctrine to think the thought that is unthinkable is to train ourselves to keep your mind as far as possible. Now you're listening to me. Are there any thoughts in your mind? Can you come from an open mind? Now this is the meaning of my Dhamma is to think the thought that is unthinkable. To practice the deed that is not doing, nicely explained in Vedanta, the more we anchor on our higher self. Even now, as I'm explaining to you, if I'm aware of the Atma Tattva in me, which is absolutely still and absolutely silent, I can log on to my higher self and allow my body mind to do whatever it has to do. To speak the speech that is inexpressible. The only speech that is inexpressible is the eloquence of silence. And Buddha wants us as far as possible, any Buddha for that matter, wants us to be silent and to be trained in a discipline beyond discipline. See, when we are going through spiritual evolution, there are a lot of don'ts. Don't do this, don't do that. Get up at this time, eat this, don't eat that. So many times in a day, you should do this. So you have to fast and so on. But the more spiritual understanding comes, ultimately, what are we doing? To be 100% free, to be free from all discipline. And yet when the person is free from all discipline, what is the guiding factor? Your own understanding, your own consciousness should be understanding. That is why Osho has titled these set of talks as the discipline beyond discipline, the discipline of transcendence. And transcendence comes when you move from the body-mind. And that is the meaning of those who understand this are near, those who are confused are far. There are 3 verses from the Gita which I need us to be able to understand before we come to the set of verses of today's class. And that is the 18th verse of the 3rd chapter, which goes like this. Naiva tasya krite narto na akritena kaschana. Here is an enlightened person. Shri Krishna is talking about himself. You know, there is nothing to be achieved through action. There is nothing to be achieved through non-action. Why? Nachasya sarva bhuteshu kaschid artha avapshraya. See, when a person is not dependent on any object, any person, any situation, that there is no dependence on anything other than Atma Nevatmana Tushtaha. Such a person does not have to do anything or accomplish anything through action or lose anything through non-action. If I have to elaborate this verse, tasya, for that enlightened person, nave arthaha, there is nothing to be accomplished kritena, through actions, na kaschana, there is nothing to be explained, there is nothing to be accomplished through inaction. Asya, for such an enlightened person, na kaschid, absolutely none, artha avapshraya. There is no dependency on any object, any person at all. One more verse. We have two verses here coming in succession. These are two important verses to understand. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti ate. The ignorant person, the spiritually ignorant person, functions through the ahankara. And such a person is vimudatma. He is not only a fool, but he's a great fool. Why? He says, Karta aham iti manyate. I am doing all this. But what is the truth? The truth is the first two lines. Prakriti kriyamanani. Gunai karmani sarvashaha. All the actions. Sarvashaha. Under all conditions, karmani, all actions, kriyamanani are done, gunai, by the gunas of Prakriti. Ahankara vimudatma, one whose mind is deluded by ahankara. Manyate, thinks, iti aham karta, thinks I am the doer. What is the difference in the attitude between a jnani and an ajnani with respect to karma? One who claims the lower I suffers from samsara. One who has discovered the higher I, the problems and achievements appear insignificant. A jnani always performs actions with fulfillment, with happiness, whereas an ajnani does so for happiness. The final verse before I come to my actual verses for today will be this. Tattvabodha mahabhavo. Mahabhavo means Arjuna, which means all of us. Tattvabodha, those who know the truth. What do they know? Guna karma vibhagayo. They know about this department of guna and karma. They know all the aspects, how the guna is responsible. What he says is guna guneshu vartanta. The sense objects interact with the sense organs. Iti matva na sajjate. Knowing this, don't get attached. So with this background, let us come to the main topic. Here is a verse from the Mahabharata which says, karmana bhadyate jantuhu vidyayatu pramuchyate. That means actions, if you do not understand about them, will trap you, but jnanam will set you free. And therefore, what is few examples in our daily life? Be like a lotus leaf. You may be in water, but you don't get wet. Or we have the non-stick dosa pan, where you can use a pan like this, where you have a very close interaction, but it does not stick. Remember this verse, which comes from the Upanishads, called Avidya Kama Karma. Avidya is the grandfather of karma, and the father of karma is called Kama. When a person does not know his true self, he gets a thought, a desire, that if I accomplish this, then I will be happy. And therefore, karma happens. So the grandfather of karma is ignorance. The father is desire. And therefore, karma happens. The moment there is jnanam, you will realize atma nevatmana tushtaha. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. But yet, as body mind, I have so much to do. Then what do? Just like we cut jackfruit, when you are going into a jackfruit cutting work, then what do? Smear your instrument and your hands with oil so that you can be in and through activity, but do not get stuck with it. With that, we will come to the verses for today. And these verses are 16 to 24. As all these verses are extremely profound, I will seek your permission that I will not be able to touch the Tattvabodha part, which is another profound topic, and I will certainly promise that I will do that on some other occasion. We come to the 16th verse, and the 16th verse is a beautiful verse which goes like this. Kim karma, kim akarma iti, kavayo api atra mohita, tatte karma pravakshami yajñatva mokshase ashubhat. Krishna says, Kim karma? What is karma? Kim akarma iti? What is akarma or inaction or actionlessness? Doing nothing. Kavayo api, even wise people are confused about it. Tatte, I will teach you about it. And once you know that, this is Krishna's style of, giving a beautiful picture before he explains. He says, Moksha se ashubhat. You will be free from all forms of sorrow. Then he continues in the next verse, Karmanyo hi api bodhavyam. I will teach you about karma. Bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha. I will tell you about prohibited actions. And I can tell you Krishna is not going to touch about that topic, but Krishna has that freedom to say that. Akarmanascha bodhavyam. I will tell you, I will certainly instruct you about what is akarma. And this is the most important thing that we need to be able to understand. Why? Gahana karmano gatihi. The nature of karma is gahana, very profound and very difficult. As I said, to understand what is this inaction or actionlessness requires spiritual wisdom. I am Atma, I am infinite, I am so big, I cannot move, and therefore I cannot do anything, even though the body mind has to do so many things. These are important. I will just touch on it. Kim karma, what is action? Kim akarma, what is inaction or actionless? Te karma pravakshyami. I will deal with this topic. Yajnatva moksha se ashubhat. Gaining this knowledge, you will be free from samsara. With this introduction, we come to the most important, the key verse, the 18th verse. And I will chant this verse. Karmanya akarmaya pashyet. Ya pashyet. One who is able to see action in inaction. Pashyet. Karmani cha karma, akarmani cha karmaya. And also akarmani. One person who is able to see inaction in action. So paradoxical. That is why this is called Grantha Granthi. These are naughty verses of the Bhagavad Gita. If you are able to understand action in inaction and inaction in action, it sounds like a play of words. Sa buddhiman manushyeshu. Such a person is a wise person. Sa yukta Krishna karma krita. Such a person is the most accomplished person. So because Krishna has given so much about this verse, let us try to break our head to understand what is this. That means I'm doing action. While I'm doing action, can I understand there is something in me which is not doing any action? And also, there are sometimes when I'm going to sleep, I'm not doing anything. Even at that time, so much is happening. So it comes down to this, our true nature. And this we need to remind ourselves again and again that there is an anatma component, which is body mind throughout our waking period, which is busy. And even when we are sleeping, the body is going on doing its processes. There is also the atma tattva or the consciousness component, which cannot do any action. And I said action involves movement, physical or mental. And since Atma is all-pervading, it cannot move. It is like space. It does not do any work. It is Akarta and it is Abhokta. Very beautifully explained in the Nataraja example. The whole creation is supposed to be like Nataraja, the dance of the creator. The whole creation is the Nataraja dance. If you see Nataraja's hair standing like that, the hair will stand only if Nataraja is constantly whirling. The body-mind complex or anatma is never free from action. So when it's physically resting, the mind may be dreaming. Even when the person is asleep, we know there are so many chemical reactions. Even an inert object like a wall, we know is made up of atoms. And in atoms, there are the electrons are in constant motion. And so this is one aspect to see that in action, that means when there is seeming non-activity, below the surface, there is a lot of activity that is going on. On the other hand, when you see so much of traffic moving, There is so much of activity happening. Even as I'm speaking, even as you are listening, can we become aware of that one aspect in us that is absolutely still? That is what this one. Instead of trying to find peace at the end of action. Now, it is not that after I finish my presentation, I'm going to relax. Right in the middle of all one's activity, if I identify with the Atma who does not do anything, and this wisdom is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa. Again and again, in the thick of your activity, log on to the higher self, observe the body-mind complex, do all its actions. As seen in the illustration, take islands of time during a busy day to taste the inner peacefulness, what a jnani does in and through all his activity. What we need to do is, even as I'm speaking, speech is happening by my lower self. Can I move to my higher self and anchor in such a position? That person who understands this dual nature in all of us is a jnani, is a person of an accomplishment, and Krishna calls it Krishna Karma Krita. Now, Adi Shankara and Swamiji have explained more to help us to understand what is action in inaction and what is this actionlessness. So this actionlessness, that means even though I do not seem to be doing anything, a Buddha sitting in silence, a Ramana for 16 years did not speak at all, did not do anything, and yet are considered the most accomplished of all people. How is that? Swamiji gives a nice example of on a Shivaratri day, you get up early in the morning, you do so many activities at home, go to the temple, come back, do some puja. There are so much of activity. In addition, one of the things that you do in Shivaratri is that you are fasting, and perhaps one of the most important sadhana that you do on a Shivaratri day is fasting. Now, is fasting an action or an inaction? Clearly, it is actionlessness. So we understand that one of the important sadhanas would be exactly what Buddha had said, my Dhamma is to think the thought that is unthinkable, practice the deed that is not doing, to speak that which is inexpressible, and to follow a discipline which is beyond discipline. You will see all our yamas are examples of actionlessness. Ahimsa, asteya, non-stealing. You're not doing anything. Brahmacharya or aparigraha. You will see the greatest of sadhanas are examples of non-doing. I'm very tempted to tell the story because this story illustrates inaction in action. I know I'm running out of time, but be with the story. I have told the story before, but we tend to forget, and the moment I tell you the story, you will remember. One day, Sri Krishna was late in his appointment to meet all the gopis, and they asked him, why are you late? And he said, I went to meet my guru. Who's your guru? He says, was Durvasa. And where is he? He's now come visiting us, and he is across the Yamuna in a certain place. So all the gopis said, if you have a guru whom you revere, can we go and serve him? He said, of course. So 56 of them prepared excellent food for him to eat. But when they wanted to go across the Yamuna, it was in flood and they could not go across. So they go to Sri Krishna, says the Yamuna is on flood. We have prepared so much for the Muni, Durvasa Muni, what to do. So Krishna tells all the gopis, you go to the Yamuna Devi and make a prayer to Yamuna Devi and say, if Sri Krishna is a chaste brahmachari, then the river will part and make a way for you to go. They all smiled at each other because they know Krishna's ways, but still very trustingly they went and made this ardent prayer. And to their amazement, the river created a path. They all could go across. Durvasa Muni accepted their hospitality. All of them were able to feed him with 56 pots of delicacies. But when they wanted to come back, the river was in spate again. They could not come back. So they go back to the Muni and says, Bhagavan, we need to go back home. So Durvasa Muni tell them, go and tell Yamuna Devi, if Durvasa Muni has eaten anything, Then if he has not eaten anything, then he will make a way for you. And all of them smiled to each other because they themselves had fed him and he had eaten 56 pots of food in front of them. Durvasa Muni is not supposed to eat anything. He drinks only a particular form of grass. So they come back to the river and make the sincere prayer, and amazingly the river parted. So all of them go back to Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna explains the essence of these verses. A person like Sri Krishna and Durvasa are so divorced from the lower self. They are anchored into the higher self. When they realize they are akarta, they don't do anything, then even though the body mind does so many activities, they essentially are akarta and abhokta. In our daily life, I will give you the example of a bank cashier. A cashier in a bank counts so much money, he receives so much money, and lakhs of rupees he gives away. He is very meticulous about how much cash he is given, how much cash he has received. By the end of the day, does he feel, oh, today I've got so much money, or today I have spent so much money? He's done his work, but there is no sense of doership that I have got this money or I do not have this money. So therefore, can we be like a bank cashier in our transaction? Do our activity, but there is no sense of I am getting money or I am losing any money. Now, the rest of these verses until Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi are an elaboration of the verse 18. If you have understood this inaction in action, then these verses are a beautiful verse. Each of them are so lovely. Yasya sarva samaramba. That person who does all activities, how? Kama sankalpa varjita. Free from any karma, free from any intention that this should happen. When there is no ego, when a person has become a jnana nishta, jnanagni dagda karmanam. What happens to all the karmas? The jnanam, the agni of jnanam burns away all the karmas. There is no punyam, there is no papa. Tam, such a wise person, tam, such a enlightened. It is the same as yasya, ahuhu. That means such a person is called a pandita by whom? Buddha. Wise people call such a person a pandita, a spiritually evolved person. A little more elaboration of the same verse because it is beautiful. He whose actions are all free from desires, kama sankalpa varjita, and whose actions are burnt by the fire of knowledge, the sages call him wise. Normally, we think that we have to be discontent to achieve. But Swamiji says it's only a content person who's a purna person is able to work in a more accomplished way. What is unique about a jnani's actions? Yogaha karmashu kausala. There is no sense of doership. There is no punya or papa. The jnanam in him has created the agni that can burn away all the punya or papa. He looks like any one of us. It is like a roasted seed which looks like any other seed. But if you plant them, it will not germinate because the jnana agni has burnt away all the punya or papa. For such a person, there is no rebirth. Tam pandita ahu is said to be a pandita. Another important verse. Tyaktva karma pala sangam. There is no attachment. To what? Tyaktva. That means a person has given up all the attachment. Tyaktva means to give up. Nitya triptaha, always content and fulfilled. Nirashraya. There is no sense of dependency. There is no want in him. Karmanya api pravartopi, even though he is in the middle of all activity. Naiva kinchit karoti saha. Such a person is in the midst of all activity. But then he does not get involved into any punya or papa. Once Bhagwan Ramana was sitting in silence like he always does. And there was a little child playing around. And this was one of those hyperactive child. Even the parents could not control. She was running around, doing this, doing that. So hyperactive. After some time, Bhagwan, who is an embodiment of silence, looks at her and says, what are you doing? And she quickly replies, Chumar kare. I'm not doing anything. And Bhagwan remarked, that's exactly what I feel. I may be in around with all of you, but I certainly feel I'm not doing anything. And that is how a jnani feels. This verse, verse 21, talks about a jnani. All the other verses can be taken as verses describing this verse describes a sannyasi. All the others describe a grihastha. Nirashir yata chittatma. Yata means a sannyasi, the one who is focusing, who's disciplined his body and mind. Nirashir, one who has no other desire. Tyaktva sarva parigraha, who has given up all his possessions. Then what he has to do? Shariram kevala karma. His only responsibility, his body. Shariram kevala kurvan apnoti kilvisham. Although he does some activity, that is taking care of his body, he does many other activities. He does not produce any punya or papa. There is no karma phala. Kilvisham literally means no sin, but here it means no karma phala. There is another beautiful verse, Yadricha labha santushtu. That means whatever comes as your karma phala, santushta. Whatever comes to you by your past actions, you accept it gratefully. Dvandva pito, free from all duality. Vimatsaraha, no jealousy whatsoever. Sama siddho asiddho, whether you are successful or not successful, the outcome is not in your hand. Sha na nibbatyate, such a person is not bound. This is a very beautiful slide which helps us to understand how a jnanam can convert an ajnani to a jnani through jnanam. An ajnani thinks he is body-mind, but through jnanam you realize I'm not the body-mind, but I am the Atma. Normally we act out of happiness, but through jnanam we act out of happiness. Normally an ajnani has a sense of I am doing it. Ajnani has no sense of doership, and therefore ajnani has no punya or papa. An ajnani, ordinarily we feel I'm different from others, but ajnani sees no difference between him and anybody else. An ajnani is attached to the result. Ajnani is completely free from the outcome. An ajnani has to struggle. For ajnani, it is effortless. An ajnani seeks the support of the world. For ajnani, he supports the world. Santushta, a person is completely fulfilled, yet absolutely bound, absolutely active, but free from the ego. Vimatsaraha, such a person has no jealousy, no envy, no competition, not dependent on anybody else. We come to the last two verses. I know I'm running out of time, but let us understand this. Gata sangasya. Gata means gone or free from sangha. There is no more attachment. Attachment means what? Without him or her, without this or that, I cannot be happy. All our sadhanas should be to gata sangasya, to be free from all attachment. And this can happen only through spiritual wisdom or atmaneva atmana tushta. Once there is spiritual wisdom, then what happens? Muktasya, you become free from all dependence. Jnana vashtita chetasa. Because of spiritual knowledge, being anchored in spiritual wisdom. Yajna acharati karma. Such a person, all his actions are done as a yajna, as an ishwararpana, as an action out of gratefulness. Samagram praviliyate. Although he is doing so many actions, praviliyate means all his karmas get dissolved. Because it is an important verse, I will explain each word again. Gata sangasya, one who has given up all attachment. Muktasya, one who is free. Jnana avishtita chetasa, one who is ever established in spiritual knowledge. Yajnaya acharati, one who performs all actions out of gratitude. Karma samagram, all his actions That means all. There is no karma phala because praviliyate. Finally, let me explain this yajnaya acharati. There is a beautiful verse from the Mundaka Upanishad which goes like this: Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanam nirvedyam ayat nastik akrit kritena tat vignartam sa gurumeva abhigachet samit pani shrotriya brahmanishta. Once a person knows that through karma I'm not going to attain purnatvam, then I go to a guru. But how do I go to a guru? I cannot go empty-handed. I have to carry a samit pani. Samit pani only means a twig, but it means a loaded twig. When I go to a guru, I have to surrender my ego. And that is yajna acharata. Once I have given up my ego, that means to Guru Shastra, one of the first important thing is there is no more ego except for transactional purposes. In Samit Pani means I have dissolved my ego. This is an important verse. I will conclude with the explanation of this particular verse. It may take a few minutes and then we will have 10 minutes for the quiz. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhinaha. Many times a day, at least 3 times a day, each time we put something in our mouth, we say this prayer, but this prayer is the summary of everything that I'm going to say. I'll come to the last line. Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhinaha. Brahma Karma Samadhinaha is one who has spiritual knowledge. Samadhi means samadhi, who's become one with the Lord, who's become one with Brahman. Such a person, he sees in every karma he is able to see Brahman. And what is this karma? This karma is very symbolic, like a yajna. Now, any yajna, and that is done by a grihastha only, brahmarpanam. The spoon through which we offer the wooden ladle is the arpanam. Brahmahavihi, what you offer, the ghee that you offer is also Brahman. To whom are you offering? You're offering it to the sacrificial fire. Agni is also Brahman. Brahmana Hutam, the one who is offering, either the priest or you yourself who is doing it, is Brahman. Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam. Ultimately, such a person attains to Brahman, who Brahma Karma Samadhinaha, who is able to see Brahman in each and all our activities. To that Guru who has given us this deep understanding, my profound namaskara. Hari Om. Thank you very much. I will request Dr. Satyanarayana to conduct a teaching quiz to be able to touch on these verses. Dr. Satyanarayana, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let us now look on with a few questions and answers with the same topic what has been discussed today. Question 1. What are the 3 types of action and their Sanskrit terms? 3 types of action and their Sanskrit terms. The answer will be action, which is called as karma, inaction, which is akarma, and prohibited action, which is vikarma. So these are the 3 types of action: karma, akarma, and vikarma. Coming on to the next question, question 2. What yoga is protective armor from karma? So the answer is, it is Jnana Yoga, which acts as a protective armor, or this acts as an insulating material and protects karma. So next, question 3. If Jnana is a protective armor, how does it help? Answer will be, if Jnana is there, then there is no sense of doership. So there is no punyam or papam. That is how it protects, it becomes a protective armor. So who are the examples of karma yogi and karma sannyasi? So it has been described in verses as well as in books. So karma yogis example given are Prahalada, Yudhishthira, and Janaka. whereas karma sannyasis are Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, and Ramanujacharya. There are a couple of them more, so these are picked as an example itself. So coming on to the next question, what is Grantha Grandhi? So this was explained by Sir also. Grantha Gandhi is naughty verse or a googly verse which have language of contradiction. So example, what we saw here, today's explanation is verse 4.18. So coming on to the next question, in verse 20, Tvekta Karma Phala Sangha Nitya Tripto. This is a reminder of which famous earlier verse, which has been described in earlier chapters. The answer, the meaning of this Tvekta Karma Phala Sangha Nitya Tripto Nirashrayaha. This is renouncing the attachment towards the action, to the result of action. And this is a reminder of earlier verse, chapter 2, verse 55, which is Prajahati Yada Kaman Atmaneva Atmana Tushtaha. Both verses talk about renouncing the attachment towards a result of action. Coming on to question 7. Of the two eyes, Atma is the higher eye. What is lower eye called as? Lower eye is called as Ahankara. Next question. Does a Jnani have Ahankara? We have read, we have seen so many examples also. We have seen that when Jnani acquires Jnanam, does Ahankara go away or will still be there? The answer is Jnani still has Ahankara, but he enjoys activities at Ahankara level and accomplishes Purnatvam. And that is how he becomes a Purna. Next question, question 9. What is the meaning of Swami? The meaning of Swami is a master, which is a master of Ahankara. One who has mastered Ahankara, he becomes a Swami. Next question, question 10. How are Jnanis released from sins? How are Jnanis released from sins? There is no attachment or proprietorship, and whatever act they do is only to please God. And that is how they are released from sins. Going on to the question 11. How does such a Jnani burn down his Agami karmas? We have seen Sir explaining this. A Jnani burning down his Agami karmas is, Sir gave a very good example of roasted seeds. Like seeds get roasted, losing ability to sprout, Ahankara in a Jnana Agni is burned down. It is burned down in the fire of wisdom, and that is how all the this Agami karmas are burnt down. Next question, question 12. In verse 22, what is the meaning of the words Dvandvatito Vimatsaraha? Dvandvatito Vimatsaraha. Dvandvatito is unaffected by the pairs of opposites, and Vimatsaraha is remaining free from jealousy. So unaffected by the pairs of opposite and remaining free from jealousy is Dvandvatito Vimatsaraha. Going on to the next question, question 13. In the verse 24, Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir, what are the 4 components? We have seen Sir beautifully showing slide of each of the component. The 4 components are fire, food, ladle, and the offerer. These are the 4 components. Question, next question, question 14. How is the word Shastram derived? Shastram is derived from the 2 root words Shas and Tra. Shas has 2 meanings. One is to command and the other is to teach. Like beautifully example given by our Swamiji Paramarthanandaji is Shastram compared to a mother. So as mother commands a child when the child is quite young and then starts teaching when the child becomes little matured. That is how Shastram also is. It initially commands and then later on teaches. That itself becomes a teaching. And Tra is means to save. So Shastram, the word is commanding and teaching and saving. That is how the word is derived. Coming on to the question 15. Match the following: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda with music, poetic and prose. I want you all to guess which is which. Answer is Rig Veda is poetic, Yajur Veda is prose, and Sama Veda is in a music form. Coming on to the last question. What are the 6 layers of Shastram? The 6 layers of Shastram are Shruti, which are Vedas, Sutra, which are aphoristic or nutshell literature, Smriti, which are clarifactory literature, Purana, which are popularizing literature, Itihasa, which is semi-historical literature or called as epics, where Ramayana and Mahabharata are examples of Itihasa, and Bhashyam is exegetical literature. Hari Om.
Thanks, Shamla Madam, for chanting and explaining the divine mantra. Thank you, Dr. Timapa Hegde sir, for a wonderful, superb presentation. You have given us a garland of valuable gems of Gnanam. We need to listen, re-listen to gain the full benefit of your talks. Thanks too for the inspiration and guidance you provide to the entire team of Vedanta family. Friends, this brings us to the end of today's class. On Monday, the 18th, we will be back with the next session of DISHA. But before that, on coming Friday, the 15th, let us meet at 6:45 p.m. local time for our verse-by-verse Bhagavad Gita 106th session to study verses 1 to 7 of Gnanatraya Vibhaga Yoga, Bhagavad Gita chapter 14. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna Paramastu.